So because it's 28 degrees out here and all frosted over, and I finally have a day off work without children, we're going to replace the plugs in this 1997 Chevrolet S10. This is a 2.2 4-cylinder. You can't tell right now, but the plugs are just sort of right there. First thing we're going to do is take off this intake piping here. Looks pretty cool. Sort of looks like a SLP on the old Camaros, actually. Pretty cool. It's stock though. But I'm going to go ahead and take the tubing off, probably leave the rest of it on, and we'll see what we can clear up to look at these plugs. All right, so to get this off, all we need to do, 2 flat heads, and then you may need both hands. There it goes. And then you just pull it off of there. But I'm gonna need both hands. All right, so once you undo those 2 clips, there is a PCV valve to worry about on the back of the valve cover. Comes out like this. I disconnected it from right there. Right now the plugs look, well, at least 3 of the 4 look fairly easy. There's 1, 2, 3, and then the 4th one is right there, sort of under these 2 hoses, but I have a clip here that we're just going to unclip and hopefully move everything out of the way without disconnecting anything. And then let me unclip these, and if I have to disconnect anything, we'll show it. But hopefully I can just pull these out with both hands and be done from there. And then we'll start taking these plugs out. All right, so I've already gone ahead and removed the first plug wire. So here it is. Both those hoses come out of the clip just enough for me to not necessarily worry about it. They're not very far apart. This one is an AC line. Be very careful with this one, because on that end over there it's actually connected to where the radiator is, and you can very easily bust things. So be very careful with this first line here. This one is just a set of wires. It's not really that bad. Disconnected the first plug wire, because the first plug, you can barely see it. It's right there. That's the first plug. We're going to go ahead and get our socket on it and take it out. And I'm going to time-lapse all this. What I do, just for reference, so I don't get anything mixed up, I do 1 plug at a time. So 1 plug, 1 wire, and then next plug, next wire, next plug, next wire, next plug, next wire. So I'm going to do 1 at a time. That way I do not get confused, because this is not a distributor system. That's actually a coil right there. With little bitty wires on the end of it, so I don't want to get anything mixed up. I'm going to do 1 at a time and go from there. I'm going to time-lapse all of this. All right, so before we get started, because this is a GM, I only use AC Delco plugs on my GM stuff. On Fords I use Motorcraft, but on GM I'm going to use AC Delco. It's a GM brand, so that's why I go. Also, before you get started, be sure you have a socket for this. There's a rubber piece in there. I'm not sure if that's picking up, but that's going to keep the plug in there when you pull it out of the head. So be sure you have a socket that fits the plugs. This one's a Craftsman 5/8, specifically built for plugs. All right, now to get the plugs out, let's go ahead and show how to do that. Let's start with the wires themselves. Now I've already pulled this one loose. You're going to have to use quite a bit of force and pull the wires out. Now if you can tell, the wires are not straight. They sort of go at an upward angle. So you see how that one is it goes sort of like that. You're going to want to pull it at the angle that it's at. You don't want to come straight up. Take the wire out. Now, like I said, I do these 1 at a time. I don't like to do them, all at the same time. You see the plug right there. My finger's on it right now. You're going to grab your socket. Be sure you get one with the rubber in the middle. Grab your socket. I like to use a universal joint. It's just easier on me. So you put your socket and your universal joint together, and it's going to look something like that. You're also going to need an extension. I like to use the ones that are not squared off at the end. If you can see that it's got rounded ends here. I like to use those because they can be moved easily. Again, this is just personal preference. So your extension, your universal joint, and your socket. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and put it all on there. I like to do this before I put my ratchet on there because, in my opinion, it's easier when you're fighting with less stuff. Slide it on the plug. Boom. Now you see how it's at an angle. This universal joint lets me sort of spin it around. If this was straight out, then this extension would probably be right about here where this AC compressor is. So rather than fighting with that, I got my universal on there, and then I'm gonna put my ratchet on the end of this. Boom, and we're ready to get this out of here. So now that that's all set, let's go ahead and cut to time lapse and get this thing out of here. All right, so all 4 plugs are changed. Go ahead and save yourself some trouble. And this clip right there, that's right over that 3rd plug, directly over the 3rd plug. Go ahead and move that, because you're gonna hate it if you try to move that joker while those plugs are there. Now let's go ahead and button everything back up together and then see how she starts up. So let's go ahead and get everything back together. All right guys, this really was not that hard of a job here. It took me a little bit longer than normal, or a little bit longer than many people, because it was so incredibly cold. I built a fire, wanted to warm my hands up. A little bit of issues, but you know, not too bad. So hope it helps. Thank you much.